Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of those videos where I talk about Dwarf Fortress updates coming from Toady1 and KitFox. Over the past 2 weeks, there has been a few patches on the beta branch updating the Adventure Mode build. In my last news video, I talked about how Adventure Mode is actually getting rather close to feature completion, from what was previously playable in the ASCII versions, version 47 to be specific. This is a continuation of that trend, adding more finer details to the game, and we're also starting to see a lot of that spill back into Fortress Mode. So I will cover what's been added in the last 2 small patches, and also how they are affecting and adding features to Fortress Mode alongside of them. At the end of this, I will then talk briefly about some stuff that Tarn mentioned in Future of the Fortress, kind of indicating what to expect next. But if you'd like the full breakdown of that, you'll have to watch the Future of the Fortress video that I will be putting up in a few days. This is also a reminder to everybody, if you like the stuff that I do, let me know what you think about these updates down in the comments section. Interactions make the YouTube machine go burr after all, and even though I hate to do it, I kinda have to. Even Urist McScribs gets it. As always, if you'd like to play Adventure Mode right now in the beta branches, that can be found by simply right-clicking on your copy of Dwarf Fortress within the Steam browser, scrolling down to the Properties option, and then selecting the Betas tab, and then selecting the Public Beta branch. This will also add some features to Fortress Mode, so there's really no reason to not play on it. And at least for me, I haven't noticed any major crashes in Fortress Mode. Adventure Mode has had some ups and downs, but I'll cover that in a few seconds. On August 28th, Beta 21 for Adventure Mode released. This was actually a rather large patch, mechanically for the game. It added in the ability for the adventurer to ride and push minecarts, and while this might be seen as kind of a minor thing, it's actually quite major for people who like to build more abstract fortresses, shall we say. It also is an important feature for the construction screen, which, as far as I know, is still slated to not be added in full until Adventure Mode is out of the beta branch. It also allows us to now use levers and bash down locked doors, as well as hatches and topple statues. Levers and knocking down doors and hatches is very important for accessing your old fortresses, so I'm happy to see that return. Toppling statues is important if you want to get cursed, or just go around causing general havoc. Also very important for fun and other nonsense. Using wells in towns is useful, and will allow me to no longer have to use my current strategy of simply climbing down the well and pulling water out manually. It's quite simple. You click on the well, lower the bucket, raise the bucket, and then you can fill items with water. Adventure Mode music now plays on context. I know I've run into a few bugs with this, where sometimes music from the main menu will continue playing in Adventure Mode, but aside from that, it's been pretty smooth, and you can also fully customize your personality in character creation. The button's kind of hidden away there, and the UI for it feels kind of placeholdery, but all the functionality is there. I'm not sure if they're going to keep it looking like the old school ASCII overlay, or if it's going to get graphics added onto it, but at least it's there, and it works. It's already going to be a niche feature that very dedicated Adventure Mode players are going to use primarily, so I don't think it needs the graphics, but if it looks a little bit more uniform with the UI, I think that would be nice. And they also added a few fixes for Linux audio bugs, which is massive because suddenly, in this version of Beta 21, Adventure Mode was playable on Linux native, which was kind of cool for me. But more on that later, because audio has induced some very strange occurrences. All in all, Beta 21 was a very important patch. It added in a bunch of things, made stuff playable, and also brought Adventure Mode to a almost completely playable state. Between that and the quest log, which came in the last update back in August 14th, things have been moving along very nicely. And exactly 1 week after Beta 21 launched, there was another update called Beta 22. Creative, I know, right? Beta 22 is quietly one of the most important updates to release this month. I would put this one on par with the quest log for general playability. The first noted one was a issue that I know at least I reported. I'm not sure how many more people reported it, but there was an audio crash specifically for mountains. If you were to travel over top of mountains because you can't fast travel, the sounds of the ambient wildlife would just slowly get louder. This was specifically goats and eagle sounds. As you would walk across the mountains, the sounds would get louder and louder and louder and louder and overlaid, and there'd be more of them until your game would crash as the frame rate started to drop. So we presume that this was some sort of leak issue with Fmod, the sound engine that Dwarf Fortress uses, so I did my best to report the bug. And it seems to have been fixed now, and you can now pass across mountains without dying to Goat-Sycosis. While it was hysterical as it happened to me on stream, it was very game-breaking, so I'm glad that that's been fixed. Is the game crashing? Motherfucker. Time to force compatibility. The next one is huge, which is palletized wearables for dwarves, humans, elves, goblins, and kobolds, and this is also visible in Fortress mode. This means if goblins are wearing copper gear, they show up wearing the correct colors now, instead of just looking like they're wearing iron or steel gear, somewhere in between, which is awesome. Same with humans and elves. So everything that they are wearing is correctly represented on the sprite, meaning you no longer need to click on the character to see what materials they are wielding. The next one is a awesome little visual addition to the game, graphical left and right hand distinction on wearables. So if a dwarf is right-handed or left-handed, you will now see this represented on the sprite. I think this is awesome because it is a beautiful little addition to the visual complexity, showing off the depth of the game itself, mechanically. However, I know at least one person who's already stated that they're only allowing right-handed dwarves into their military so that everybody holds the uniform in the correct sides, but I mean, live and let live, I suppose. Personally, I think it's awesome. Next up is the addition of child and baby images for humans, elves, goblins, and kobolds. So in adventure mode, when you're running around being a murder hobo, you get the full representation of how terrible a person you are. The next one is one of those massive updates that I was talking about, which is visible soldiers and groups on the world map in adventure mode. As far as I know, they've always been there. They don't generally trigger any encounters when you walk over top of them, especially if you're neutral to them. However, now when you are adventuring around in the overworld space, you will see little icons moving around the map. These are either groups traveling, such as monks, caravans, or refugees fleeing from a siege, or they might be armies prepping to attack something. This was one of the features that I was eagerly awaiting because it makes the world feel alive, and it gives you a very clear idea of what is going on around your adventurer, and also gives you plenty of things to attack, or, alternatively, try and barter and join. It just makes the world feel as alive as it actually is, and that is an awesome addition that I'm very happy to see make a return. The next of the massive mechanical updates for Adventure Mode, and a feature that I've been waiting for since Adventure Mode released into beta, is the sound indicators in unseen areas. Essentially, your adventurer can hear things through walls, indicating that there is movement or fighting or something playing, giving you an idea of what's coming. So now instead of just fumbling around in the dark until you happen upon a friendly or enemy entity, now you have some indicator of where to look and how far away they might be. Also, as far as mechanical importance goes, the ability to assume an identity. Perhaps you're playing somebody who's notorious. Maybe you've slaughtered entire villages. Or perhaps you're just famous for playing really bad music and want to surprise them with your wonderful compositions, instead of getting booed out of the tavern before you even open your mouth. The ability to assume an identity allows you to hide what your character is and who you are and your past histories, allowing you to have a lot more options in the places you can get into and the people you can talk to, which is, as they say, a lot of fun. And then the last addition on this patch note for Beta 22 is like the most niched and specific thing ever, but also makes sense that it's in here, which is if you are sitting in arena mode and a character gets injured, you can see exactly what their wounds are without having to diagnose them first, which I think is very funny. I'm glad that that's in there, but probably not something I will ever use. In the last news video, I talked quite a bit about the state of Adventure Mode, and the fact that I think it's actually gonna release kinda soon. At this point, there's maybe 1 or 2 screens left. Not a lot that still needs to be done. We need the smells overlay and the tracking overlay. The tracking overlay is kind of half there, but it requires the character to be covered in a liquid, and smells isn't there at all. If you are kind of squinting at your monitor going, what in the world are you talking about, blind? Essentially, it allows you, the player, to hunt more effectively and track down wildlife from the overworld as well as in the normal travel screens. This is especially important for animal people that can only eat meats, or just players who want to train combat in the early levels. It's a useful feature, but also a very niche one with simple UI. In the monthly report for Dwarf Fortress, Tarn mentions specifically the things left to do are graphics and audio work, as well as classic glyphs for the free version, so that it can be worked into the Bay 12 ASCII versions, as well as the optional ASCII in the paid versions, as well as the tracking odor and stealth vision arcs, and as he says, just a bit more to do. Tarn also mentions in the monthly report on the website that we'll quite likely see the first chosen and tutorial stuff out at some point this month. The last few patches have been on a weekly cycle. I'm not sure if the next one's gonna drop on a weekly cycle. That would be pretty cool. But stuff has definitely been developing at a very brisk clip. I stand by my theory that I placed in the last video. Adventure mode, chosen, and tutorial work is probably further along than some of you in the comments think. I'd be willing to bet money that Tarn has just been sitting there prototyping stuff most of the time, and then working on UI elements when he needs to. Things are definitely coming together kind of all at once, and that is a sign that we'll probably see his prototyped work sooner rather than later. The current question mark is the scope of the chosen stuff. For those of you who do not know, the chosen option is an option in Character Creator, which is currently unavailable. What it will allow you to do is talk to the character's god, and the god will give you some sort of direction within the world. We don't know what that will look like, and also some sort of tutorial interaction within the world. We also don't know what that will look like. You've been able to talk to your god for forever. It gives you all of the normal speech options, but your character just kind of speaks to themselves and nothing happens. Aside from you get a happy thought for communing with your god if your character is particularly religious. So there's a lot of question marks with the chosen and tutorial work, but if it's not that big in scope, it could be finished quite soon. At least, that's just my take. If you're looking for something interesting to watch in the Dwarf Fortress scene, I recommend checking out my video called I Started a Cult and Here's How It Went. It's covering the secrets and histories of a fortress called Goat-Sycosis. That video took a whole lot of work, about 60 hours of editing, and it's comprised of over 90 hours of footage. Of course, if you like the work that I do over here in these parts, I recommend you check out my blog, which can be found over at blindirl.com, where I write updates on the various things that I'm working on. Of course, I also stream on this YouTube channel, as well as on Twitch, twitch.tv/blindirl, where I play mostly Dwarf Fortress and sometimes other things. I need to work some other things into that list because apparently KitFox is now publishing Astronauts, and that's going to reach 1.0 soon, so I guess it's time to go back to that. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care of yourselves, enjoy the summer, or what's left of it, and I'll see you in the next one.